As a child, when one first hears the story of the origination of 100 blessings, it all seems to make so much sense. 100 equals 100. The blessings and deaths are numerically equal, measure for measure. Life uproots death. Good cancels out bad. No questions asked. Let's begin counting our blessings. We'll be good. But obviously there's got to be so much more than just the numerical value of 100 that enables, and like we said earlier, continues to have the ability to put an end to plagues and pandemics. What is it about the power of blessings, brachos, that has that ability? Let's begin by taking a look into our guidebook, the Torah, and see what wisdom we could find that may help us discover what the root of sickness really is. As always, I think it's best if we delve directly into the Hebrew wording itself. So here it goes. The Hebrew word for sickness is chola, the root of the word being chol. In Judaism, we view life as a battle of kodesh versus chol. Let me explain. Kodesh we often define as holiness, but more appropriately it translates as dveikus, as a connection, both experiencing and being involved in connection. But not only connection, a passionate one. It's no wonder the same word kedushin is the word we use in reference to marriage, an act of two souls coming together and passionately connecting to form one home. In Judaism, we view the connecting of the physical and spiritual worlds as holiness, as kedusha, creating a passionate connection between two seemingly contradictory phenomena and allowing the physical space of this world to become a host to spirituality is one of the highest forms of self-actualization. Having a greater understanding of what it means to be kodesh, holy, split, spiritually lit, passionately connected, by using the power of antonyms, we now understand that chol, the antithesis of kedusha, the root of the word choleh, sickness, often translated as mundane, in fact means so much more. Really, on a deeper level, can now be understood as dispassionate or uninspired, lack of connection, or disconnection. And being a chola is experiencing that. Once healthy, they hold hands with people, could connect with people on a deeper level to the depths of their heart, their body, and their soul. But once sick, there's a disconnect between our thoughts, our bodies, and our minds. We can no longer come in close contact with people. We become disconnected, separate, quarantined, socially distant. We are no longer being the individual created to be, someone actualizing ourselves and the world around us. Being a conduit, a connector of the physical and spiritual worlds, and that's chol. Interestingly enough, the Kushan Sarmagid points out that chol is also the Hebrew word for sand. Why? Because like sickness, each granule of sand stands alone. It doesn't connect to anything else. And because sand doesn't connect to one another, we can't plant in it. Anything we put into sand doesn't have the ability to grow. Because it's chol, disconnected, standing alone, the greatness and potential that earth and soil possess, the ability to plant, grow, and actualize, is non-existent. It's the opposite of kedusha, and that's our battle. A war being waged between kodesh, deep, passionate connection, and chol, disconnection. By now, we should have a greater understanding of what the depth of sickness really is, according to the root of the word choleh. With that understanding, I'd like to bring in one more interesting source before bringing it back to the 100 blessings. When discussing the instructions for the construction of the Mishkan, the tabernacle that the Jewish people were instructed to build as a place that was to become a spiritual place in this physical world, allowing for God's presence to dwell amongst us, a conduit of kedusha, passionately connecting heaven and earth, the Torah goes into great length and detail as to how each and every part must be made, dedicating almost a third of the book of Exodus to its construction. Knowing that the Torah is an eternal guidebook, and each and every word within it offers guidance and wisdom for every generation, we've got to ask ourselves, why go into so much detail? What's the need for the repetition of this Mishkan blueprint? What guidance can I glean from my own life, like we learned from the construction manual of this tabernacle? I think we could all agree that isn't that we should be rushing down Broad Street to set one up in City Hall. Taking a look at the wording for the commandment to build the tabernacle, it says, V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'socha. Build for me a sanctuary, and I will dwell in them. The rabbis point out that what would first appear as a grammatical error of building a sanctuary, singular, and I will dwell in them, plural, is in fact how we can understand how this very mitzvah, this commandment, was not only relevant when the Torah was given, but even here and now, stuck inside, quarantined in the year 2020, it's relevant to us. We're taught that, yes, although nowadays there's no commandment for us to construct a physical Mishkan, where the Torah is relaying to us by writing in them, is that even at times when we do not have the opportunity to build a Mishkan, we still have the ability to make ourselves into a Mishkan, make ourselves into a tabernacle, create within ourselves a place in this mundane world, in this world of disconnection, in the world of chol, that will be a host to the divine presence, that will create a connection and allow a place for spirituality in this world. And that's why the Torah goes into so much detail regarding the instructions for the creation of the Mishkan, as well as everything in it. It's because if we take a look at the blueprint for the Mishkan and its artifacts, there's so much that we can learn as how to best aim to structure ourselves, allowing us to create a Mishkan within ourselves and actualizing our greatest potential. To highlight this idea, I'd like to take a look at just one of the smallest parts of the Mishkan. I'm referring to the sockets, the adonim, silver sockets that were used to hold up the beams and in turn reinforcing and supporting the entire structure of the Mishkan. And now we bring it back to the 100 blessings. Because if we take a look at the verse, it says that the Mishkan contained 100 sockets, 100 adonim. And the commentaries point out that these 100 sockets represent the 100 blessings that we are obligated to say every single day. If we'd like to begin building a Mishkan within ourselves, creating a connection in this world of chol, it starts with building a proper support foundation. How do we build that foundation? By counting our blessings. By instituting the need for us to make 100 blessings a day, it brings awareness into our lives. It allows for us to take a step back, to concentrate, and to remember that this bracha, this blessing that I'm about to make on my coffee, that's number 73 for today. It enables us to become more aware of Hashem's presence in our lives, more aware of the godliness of the daily, day-to-day natural occurrences. When I pick up my cup of joe and take a moment to make the bracha of shahakol, acknowledging that everything in my life is here because Hashem would like it to be, I'm placing down that socket, enabling myself to build a Mishkan within me, allowing Hashem's presence to be present in this world. And while doing that, I'm also transforming that very brew for something that's chol, disconnected, nothing more than a mundane act of drinking coffee, to a means of connecting heaven and earth, transcending and elevating that coffee and the act of drinking it into kedusha, into a means of elevating myself and the world around me to a state of passionate connection. Every bracha, every blessing that we say is a tool towards mindfulness, allowing us to pause for a moment, giving us the opportunity that we are connected to and have an even greater ability to connect with Hashem. Whether it's throughout our prayers, when we wash our hands, before and after having something to eat, or even after using the bathroom. Our sockets, our blessings allow us to instill godliness into the normal routine of a disconnected life. And that's why the institution of saying and counting 100 blessings a day was able and is still able to dismiss plague from the world. Because when we're living in a world of chol, a world of sickness, death, and disconnection, a world where we find ourselves like sand, standing separate from one another, being unable to grow, we need to instill ourselves and everything around us with spirituality. Creating a Mishkan down here in this world, using the 100 blessings as our sockets to enable that Mishkan to stand. And with that Mishkan standing, being used as a space to bring Hashem's presence into the world, we'll be living in a state of kedusha, causing chola to disappear, no longer leaving room for virus, disease, sickness, and chol, mundaneness, disconnection. We'll be living in a world of actualization, a world of kedusha, a world where there's passionate connection between heaven and earth. With that, I'd like to invite you on our journey to join our Blessed Ton campaign, a campaign of not only counting our blessings, but also a campaign of connecting heaven and earth, a campaign which will be bringing awareness of Hashem's constant presence and involvement in our lives, allowing us to experience a semblance of mindfulness during these chaotic times. And hopefully, with that, we can end this social distancing, disconnection, and chol for good.